Thank you, Hugo. Good morning to you all. It's a great pleasure to welcome all of you here in our country to deal with such an important task, which is the subject of this workshop. Before we start, I would like to highlight a few changes we had in the agenda. So we have distributed the agenda. You can see that the facilitator of this first session would be Maria Elena Sanchez. But because of flight problems, she got a bit delayed, so she will be here in the afternoon, and because of that, I will be facilitating this morning session. On the top of that, we had a few changes, so this morning I will just briefly present the context of the workshop and the exercise we are going to be doing here, followed by a presentation from Juan Carlos Vasquez from the CITES Secretariat. Then we will have a presentation by myself, an introduction from the sea, followed by a presentation by Carlos Polo from ONAP, from Colombia, on the Appendix 2 of CITES in action. After that, then we'll have, in the second part of the morning, the overview of shark identification guides and tools by Jimmy Martinez. And after that, we would have a presentation by Juan Carlos Cantu, but also because of flight problems, we had to exchange that with the presentation of Monica Baroni from FAO. So that will take care of our morning session. So with that, I think we can start. But I just prepared a very brief presentation just to introduce the issue. We are now facing a new situation. We have a few shark species that have been included this year during COP16, and now we have the task to make this listing of these species to work, and that's our objective here. So we have a couple of days to discuss all details, to clarify our doubts, and I'm sure that we will all leave this meeting with a much better understanding on the challenges we have ahead of us, but with regard to which I'm sure we will be entirely successful. So I will just start very quickly to contextualize the problem. If I can find my presentation here, where I put it. Not that, I think might be that one. Yeah, okay, so it's important, I believe, to contextualize that the main reason for the inclusion of those shark species in the Appendix 2 of CITES was driven mainly because of the problem of shark finning. So it's important so that we have all common ground to understand what's the problem. To take the fins out of sharks is not illegal. What is illegal is to throw the shark in the water. So if the fishermen just get the shark, cut out the fins, and do land both the carcass and the fins together, that's not what we call shark finning, but throwing the dead shark back into the water, this is the reason of the problem. And in the recent decades, the shark finning problem has grown quite significantly worldwide, and the price of the shark fins has gone significantly up, and that has resulted in a significant growth of the shark fishery worldwide, and with a much higher pressure over the population of these species, which are highly vulnerable. So to do shark finning, it's not much different from what we have with regard to rhinoceros and elephant poaching. Is exactly the same thing. It means it is wasteful use of a very precious species in the case of sharks, which have a very low productivity and high vulnerability. So to get a bowl of soap, we would kill an entire animal. And that was the main reason, I believe, to have CITES participate in the global effort to control this trade, to ensure that the exploitation of these species are done in a sustainable manner. Shark finning has, because of this wasteful practice, has been condemned and prohibited by several regional fisheries management organizations and countries worldwide, including about over 70 states and 10 regional fisheries management organizations who have already banned shark finning. Many of them are listed here. And this prohibition of the shark finning, it has been implemented mainly on the basis of the fin to body ratio, generally on the basis of 5% of this ratio, which is very difficult to implement because it's open to interpretation, and it's very hard to enforce because of the way you can process the fins. For example, you can have the fins recently taken, the raw fins, they have a completely different weight than the dried fins. So it's very difficult to know exactly with regard to the humidity content of the fins that you are applying the 5%. That's one of the problems. We also have the problem of which exactly are the fins that are being considered in the percentage of 5%. The most, with the fins with highest values are the dorsal, pectorals, and the lower caudal, but sometimes you have also the upper caudal. So depending on the group of fins that are included, the percentage will change, and of course, different species have different shapes and sizes and weight of the fins. That's very good in a way because it makes our life very easy to identify, much easier to identify the species through the fins, but it means also that we can't have a single percentage that would apply to all shark species because every shark species would have a different proportion. This is the oceanic white tip, and it's the easiest fin we can identify it because it's very typical, very characteristics, and there is no difficult to identify the fins. It's the only shark that has this shape and these colors in their fins. We also have the 3 species of hammerhead and the porbigo. So more recently, because of these difficulties, many countries are adopting regulations that make it mandatory for the sharks to be landed with the fins attached. That has been the case of the countries listed here, including Brazil, as we're going to see very quickly. Others have adopted a ban on shark fishing, and others have adopted a ban on the export of shark fins. The inclusion, and I think this is a very important question, and of course we are here also to answer this question, what the inclusion of the porbigo, the oceanic white tip, and the hammerheads in CITES Appendix 2 at COP16 will do to help the conservation of shark species, to help the sustainability of shark fisheries. Well, it will, first of all, greatly help the enforcement of measures adopted by regional fisheries management organizations. We will have tomorrow a presentation by Ramon Bonfil describing what measures the different regional fisheries management organizations have adopted. For example, just to pick one species, the oceanic white tip shark. The fishery for the... Oh, it's lower. Okay, I speak really fast, I'm sorry. Yes, they might be having some difficulty to translate. Sorry, translators, interpreters. Anyway, so, for example, the oceanic white tip shark, the catch, the retaining on board, not the catch, but the retaining on board, the landing, the selling of the oceanic white tip shark has been prohibited by almost all regional fisheries management organizations that manage tunas. And this shark species is almost exclusively caught in conjunction with tuna fisheries. So, meaning that around the world, the oceanic white tip cannot be sold, cannot be even landed. So the adoption by the inclusion of the oceanic white tip in Appendix 2 of CITES will, of course, help to enforce not only that measure with regard to the oceanic white tip, but of other measures, like in the case of ICAT, the prohibition of export of hammerhead sharks that are caught in conjunction with tuna fisheries. It will also, and I think this is the most important advantage, it will improve the availability of data on trade and consequently on catches worldwide. So we will know much better how much shark is being caught in a global basis, which is, in most cases, is the main difficulty to really assess the condition of shark stocks, because we don't know how much is being caught. And as a consequence of that, it will also significantly improve the management of the fishery, ensuring, of course, its sustainability. So that we know where the fins go. Most of the fins go to the Asian market, mainly to Hong Kong, as we can see here. And taking Brazil as an example, we adopted a legislation banning shark finning in 1998. That was based, as usual, initially on the 5% fins to body ratio. Upon land, someone said something? No? Okay. Upon landings, the weights of the fins and carcass had to be measured and informed to the Environment Agency in a specific form, and the enforcement of this measure has led to several apprehension of fins, which documents of origin were not available. But there were a lot of difficulties to ensure the proportion between the shark carcass and the shark fin ratio. So more recently, in November last year, about 1 year ago, the Brazilian government adopted the interministerial normative instruction, which made it mandatory for all sharks to be landed with the fins attached. That has been, I would say, a worldwide trend that has happened in several other states. And just in the past week, we have tried, several delegations have made a proposal in ICCAT to adopt the fins attached provision in ICCAT fisheries, but it did not pass. So the obvious advantage of the fins attached is that it's much easier to implement and to enforce. So summing up, I believe that although the shark finning and consequently the legal fin trade is still a serious problem, it's very clear to me that the international community is moving in the right direction. And with this regard, I believe that the approval of the shark proposals in CITES Appendix 2 during the last COP was quite a significant help to ensure the proper monitoring of the fin trade and consequently the sustainability of these species worldwide. So I believe that inclusion it was a crucial step to ensure that the shark fishery can be done in a sustainable manner. I think that's the most important thing we should think. The inclusion of those shark species in Appendix 2 is not against fisheries, much on the contrary. It's to help fishery, because if we can't ensure the sustainability of the fishery of these shark species, it means we won't be able to fish them anymore. But since they are included in CITES Appendix, since now we will be able to monitor their catches in a much more efficient manner, that means that we will be able to ensure the sustainability of their exploitation in a much more adequate manner than we have done so far. That's what I had to show, just as a matter of introduction so that we all understand why that has come to CITES and why we are all here. And with that, then I can invite our first guest to do its presentation this morning, and that will be, let me see the English version I have here, overview of CITES Appendix 2 requirements for sharks, and, sorry, overview of CITES and Appendix 2 requirements and marine species in CITES by Juan Carlos Vasquez, who is from the CITES Secretariat. So I would like to invite Juan Carlos to come up here so that he can make his presentation.